Hello again. Activists say rebel attacks in Syria's north have killed at least 28 soldiers, while a series of explosions have rocked the capital, Damascus. This as one of the main rebels' western backers, Washington, meantime, has called for a complete shake-up of the Syrian opposition, revealing plans indeed to hand greater influence to militants on the front line. Syria has various militias fighting Assad, many of which have been infiltrated by radical extremists linked to al-Qaeda. Nonetheless, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said the US no longer sees Syria's National Council as a leading opposition force because of its lack of support on the ground. Now, the exiled group said it's planning to base itself inside Syria in an attempt to try to prove its relevance. But is it too late? Now the US administration is already suggesting names to represent a new leadership taking over a major role from the SNC. Let's talk about this with Eric Draitser, who's a geopolitical analyst from stopimperialism.com. He's on the line from New York. Hi there, Eric. So Washington's already suggesting names to represent a new opposition leadership with the SNC to have just a few seats. Why this shift and why now?
Well, first and foremost, I think it represents the manufactured nature of the opposition, or at least the political opposition that we see in the public sphere. The Syrian National Council and people like Basma Komani and other leadership there, they never had any legitimacy among the Syrian people. They merely had legitimacy within the ruling class circles of the West. But what's happened in recent months as the offensive from the Syrian military has developed, what we've seen is that they have no real backing on the ground, that is to say, the manufactured opposition. And so the United States, in their imperialist project to destroy the independent nation of Syria, has to find another way. And so a shakeup of the opposition with new, quote-unquote, leaders emerging, this is the U.S. strategy, one that is doomed to fail.
Isn't it just adding more smoke to more fuel to the fire, indeed? Washington risking being accused even greater of controlling events from the outside rather than letting Syrians decide it for themselves.
Certainly, it does run that risk. However, I think that the United States, the Obama administration, Hillary Clinton, Susan Rice, and the other major players, I think they've taken the calculated decision that it is worth the risk if it means that they can salvage the Syria operation. We have to remember that the end of the U.S. adventure in Syria, ending in defeat, I should say, would be the end of U.S. hegemony in the Middle East. If they're unable to continue their march from Syria, that means their attempt to destroy Iran is unlikely to evolve. That means that their stranglehold over the Persian Gulf and the oil resources is weakening. So they're putting all their cards on the table and sort of putting all their chips in the pot when it comes to Syria.
The SNC is trying to fight back, isn't it, now, in an attempt to try to prove its relevance. It says it's going to move to Syria, but that might not be enough, I guess, to save its credibility. And could the major Western-backed shift of the opposition help change anything on the ground now, though?
Well, what's interesting about the development that you just mentioned of the SNC moving into Syria is that the propaganda line from CNN and the Western corporate media is that this is to prove their relevance, to prove their legitimacy. But what I'm hearing from my sources and from independent sources around the world, this is in fact because Turkey has grown tired of basing the Syrian National Council. Turkey has grown tired of basing the Free Syrian Army, and so they're pushing them and sort of prodding and encouraging them to enter into Syria, because it seems that Turkey is looking for any way to disengage from this conflict once they've seen the writing on the wall that this would be the end of modern Turkey.
And what about the dangers here of this plan as well? Washington's saying it wants to hand more political power to major figures fighting on the front line. But I guess, although it says extremists should not hijack the Syrian revolution, there is a danger that could happen.
Sure, and we shouldn't be taken in by the rhetoric of for the Syrian opposition. The Syrian opposition, the manufactured opposition, I should say, has been riddled with al-Qaeda and other forms of extremists, many of them imported from the imperialist war against Libya directly into Syria. So when they say on the one hand that they don't want to arm the extremist elements, on the other hand, it is those same extremist elements that were imported by the United States and Qatar and Saudi Arabia. So they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. But the reality is they're arming the opposition, they're arming the extremists because they want chaos in Syria. That is the only way to get military intervention and to move forward with the imperialist project.
Eric, final quick thought while you're on the line. Let's get to the Russian side of it. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov just yesterday warned that the violence in Syria could spread terror throughout the Middle East and that ousting Assad's government would lead to more bloodshed. It's a message we've heard before, reiterated again yesterday. Why do you think some Western states still don't share that view?
Well, it's not that they don't share the view. I think it's an objective fact that Alawites and Shia and Armenians and Druze and Christians would all be slaughtered under an al-Qaeda regime. This is an objective fact. What's not being recognized by the West is that the attempt to destroy Syria has stalled and has ended. The rhetoric from Moscow has always been the same: defend human rights, defend territorial sovereignty and the norms of international relations. But what we see time and time again is that the United States is not interested in that. The United States is interested in the singular goal of the destruction of Syria with the long-term project of destroying Iran. And so it makes sense that any attempt to reconstitute the opposition would be in the interests of the U.S. and Obama administration, which is going to be the one that suffers politically from all of this.
Thanks for taking the time to be with us. Eric Drake, geopolitical analyst from StopImperialism.com on the line from New York.
Thank you.